earthquake warning. Could a planetary alignment spark California big one earthquake? I'm going to relate to July 5th big earthquake in Ridgecrest last year of 7.1 and the truth exposed. Now we know that a full moon gives us water tides and earth tides, earth meaning the tectonic plates. And we know that last year, on July 2nd, we had a total solar eclipse of the sun, July 2nd. That was 2 days before the July 4th 6.4 before shock in Ridgecrest. July 2nd, we had a total eclipse of the sun that was over the western United States and going through Latin America and then down that way. But we had a 6.2 magnitude earthquake north of Vancouver Island on July 3rd. Okay, that after a day after the July 2nd total solar eclipse of the sun. So July 3rd, we had the 6.2. 13 hours later, we had the foreshock of the July 4th morning of 6.4, which was about a day before the, a day and a half before the Ridgecrest magnitude 7.1 earthquake. So it was a godsend that they had the 6.4 in Ridgecrest because that alerted everybody else, because the geologists came out and said we may have a bigger aftershocks and even a main earthquake, which they did have 7.1. It was the evening of July 5th on Friday, and everybody was out because it was around 8 p.m. and everybody was out and aware. So thank goodness we had no casualties from that earthquake. That was a miracle in itself. But that last year's earthquake was after the July 2nd solar eclipse, total solar eclipse. This is, of course, the Ridgecrest area on the Walker Lane fault system, which is a series of faults parallel to the San Andreas fault. The San Andreas fault is the biggest fault of California, taking up 75% of the subduction pressure from the Pacific plate under the North American plate. The Walker Lane fault system takes up the other 25%. And we know that many a times we see that the Vancouver earthquakes, especially the bigger ones, have a result of giving earthquakes around Ridgecrest and Walker Lane and Garlic Fault because of the pressure that's connected between them. Now, we know that Garlic is zipped and locked with the San Andreas fault, but the Walker Lane fault system, since it's a series of faults, is weaker, and it's like a juggling puzzle. And the Walker Lane goes towards the northwest and hits towards the Cascadia arc. And the Vancouver Island of Canada is part of the Cascadia arc of the west coast. So we know that the full moon does have an effect on earthquakes. I remember last year I had recorded the full moon. It was so beautiful outside my house. It was summer, and I went out and took a video of the beautiful full moon. Just as I uploaded the video, we had a big earthquake here in Athens, Greece. Big meaning like 5.6 magnitude, and it shook us for a couple of seconds. It was not pleasant, but yes. So we do know that we do have earthquakes. It's a scientific evidence. It's a fact that we do have more earthquakes during full moons than we do when there's not a full moon. So that's just a planetary alignment of our natural satellite around Earth. But what happens when we have the gravitational pull of planetary alignments? Now, according to this, earthquakes and volcanic eruptions could be caused by the movement of our planets. A controversial book claimed in 1974. One astronomy expert reveals the truth behind the bestseller. The 1982 book, The Jupiter Effect, suggests the alignment of planets could trigger apocalyptic catastrophes across the globe, from the Big One earthquake on California's San Andreas Fault to successive volcanic eruptions. This book was written by John Gribben and Stefan Plachman. The text argued that every 179 years, an approximate alignment of the planets take place, and in turn they spark major changes on the Earth. In other words, geological, upheavals, meaning earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, perhaps. Now, the authors argue the San Andreas Fault, in particular, was already strained and ready to rupture, and we know that that's what the strain is building up and we're overdue. Some, for example, in the northern part of the San Andreas, around Oregon, they've already warned the people that they're overdue. They have a major earthquake every 300 years, they're overdue. The same thing with the southern, same thing with the middle part of San Andreas. Now, these authors claim the whole causal chain on the next planetary alignment, which would have been in 1982, would come into play and result in huge earthquakes. The book said the authors, who were both astronomers with PhDs from the Institute of Theoretical Astronomy from the University of Cambridge in the UK, sought to warn the inhabitants of the immenseness of a devastating earthquake that would have taken place about 1982. As we said, we are overdue. Dr. Michio Kaku comes out saying that we are overdue on the West Coast for a major earthquake. Now, concerning these authors, the earthquake never happened, the overdue big earthquake. Their apocalyptic forecast for 1982 never happened. And astronomer author Guy Otwell revealed there's another planetary alignment taking place right now. So what does this mean for our Earth? Writing on his blog Universal Workshop, Guy Otwell said, there's been discussion among the commenters at my blog about a current alignment of planets and about whether its tidal stress on Earth could affect the Earth, such as increased volcanism. So I thought I'd show where the planets are July of 2020. Otwell explained that July 22nd, the ecliptic heliocentric longitudes of the planet are Mercury 349, Venus 328, Earth 299, Mars 328, just like Venus, for example, Jupiter 293, Saturn 299, just like Earth, Uranus 38, Neptune 348. So some of the planets at present happen to be roughly on the spoke outwards from the Sun. He explained that the tidal force of body A on body B is the difference between its gravitational pull on the side of B nearer to it and on the other side farther. That's why there is a high tide on the side of the Earth nearest to the Moon and also on the opposite side. The distance between the centers of the Moon and Earth is on average 238,606 miles, while the radius of Earth is 4,000 miles. This means the Moon's distance to the near and far sides average about 2,500 miles. In other words, the difference between those is approximately 3%. The distance of gas giant Jupiter from Earth is about 621 million miles, so the distance from Jupiter to the nearer and farther sides of the Earth are 780,000, 3 sets of 3 zeros, plus the minus 6,378 miles, and that's a difference of about 0.0016%. So this means there's a very, very small effect, and Mr. Otwell says it's not enough to cause an uptick of huge earthquakes and devastating volcanic eruptions. Speaking about the 1974 book, he said, there was some evidence that global tides may have been 40 micrometers or 40 thousandths of a millimeter higher than average. The only other part of the prediction that came true was that the book was a bestseller. So tell me what you think. We do have, as we said, every time we have a full moon, there have been an uptick of earthquakes during full moons. And as we said, we noticed even before the total solar eclipse happened, I put up an earthquake video concerning the coming solar eclipse and said we have to be careful of a big earthquake because they do happen when we have total solar eclipse, as we had in 1999 in Athens, Greece, over Turkey and Athens, after the August 15, 1999, over the area of the eastern Aegean Sea. That's when we had a couple of days later, on August 17, the big earthquake in Turkey on the Anatolia Fault, and that pressure came and hit Athens a couple of days later on September 7th of 1999. So we do have a ricochet effect and the stress coming from the total solar eclipse. I've seen that, and it's that's why the people in the area of Turkey after the solar eclipse were really pensive and in awe and awaiting something. And that's what exactly happened, because, you know, the people in Arabia, for example, Babylon, all these people, the ancients, they knew what would be happening after a solar eclipse. And that's some type of an alignment. So please tell me what you think about this. Thank you for your support. Leave your comment. Thank you. And this was by Tom Fish on Express UK. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.